Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is the silence of Christian and Muslim leaders about the terrible blight of Jew hatred that has emerged recently. The dramatic increase in Jew hatred and acts of anti-Semitism is, one would think, so prevalent, so dramatic, that it would be obvious to everyone. But for some mysterious reason, there has been a dearth of condemnations from both Christian leadership and from Muslim leaders in the United States and even around the world. On those few occasions, often when there have been public statements condemning anti-Semitism, and when those statements have been covered by the mainstream media, which is important, they've been part of interfaith initiatives which, and this should not surprise you, are often initiated by Jewish leadership. After an extensive search, utilizing both the internet and AI, and using multiple AI engines, I was shocked by the small number of organizations and their leaders not on the record condemning this hateful bias against Jews. Not on the record. There is almost nothing to be found in mainstream media condemning this impossible to ignore anti-Jewish blight that is running rampant across the United States and Europe. In all fairness, there are two exceptions, notable exceptions. The Pope and Pastor Hagee. They both publicly condemned the plague of anti-Semitism that we are witnessing. Unfortunately, it's almost lone voices in what could have been and should have been a chorus of so many other religious leaders and organizations from all denominations and countries around the world. Of all the voices that have been raised, Europe outnumbers the United States. And it would probably take you aback to learn that some of those most strident voices speaking out against Jew hatred have come from the Muslim world. Shortly after the horrors of October 7th, 2023, before the cone of silence descended on religious leadership vis-a-vis Jew hatred, several Muslim voices were heard. Hyphen, a major website dedicated to Muslim British life, reported that on October 19th, British Muslim faith leaders composed of over a dozen senior UK Muslim clerics, including Imams Kari Asim and Ibrahim Mogra, issued a statement condemning anti-Semitism in Britain and calling for restraint and peace. 2 days earlier, on October 17th, 2023, Sheikh Ibrahim Mogra, alongside the Archbishop of Canterbury, and as well as Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, publicly condemned the rise of hate crimes and anti-Semitic attacks and urged solidarity. Other than that, there were several interfaith initiatives, and that was it. In January 2023, months before the massacre and the appalling rise of anti-Semitic attacks that took place afterwards in the United States, the Islamic Organization of North America, also known as IONA, came out with a joint interfaith statement against anti-Semitism. That was a full 10 months before the massacre of October 7th. Their wording is strong. Their message was that anti-Semitic intimidation against the Jewish community, quote, must be condemned in the strongest terms, unquote. In February 2024, a group called American Muslim and Multi-Faith Women's Empowerment Council, the AMMWEC, held a summit and interfaith breakfast. There may be more, but not much more than the ones I've just listed. And according to Euronews, on April 15th, Sheikh Dr. Muhammad ibn Abdurrahim al-Issa, the Secretary General of the Muslim World League, said, and I'm quoting again, "We are against any form of hatred against followers of religions because of their religious choice." Going further in his condemnation, he called for dialogue as the only path towards overcoming anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Christian voices of condemnation are even fewer. The raised voices of the Pope and Pastor John Hagee are the exceptions. Their voices serve to emphasize the deafening silence of their respective colleagues. On January 26, 2025, on the eve of the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, Pope Francis called anti-Semitism a scourge and urged collective action to eliminate all forms of religious persecution and discrimination. He appealed for unity and remembrance. This statement of the Pope was covered by nearly all mainstream media. At their summit in July of 2025, held just outside of Washington, D.C., Christians United for Israel, CUFI, reaffirmed its steadfast solidarity with Jewish communities and strong opposition to replacement theology, standing firmly against anti-Semitism. Pastor John Hagee, a proud lover of Jews and a lover of Israel, and the founder of CUFI, is generally prominently featured and covered in the mainstream media, and this event was covered. Following the summit, Hagee said, "In recent weeks, we have seen Jews murdered on the streets and Jewish businesses ransacked here in America. It's shameful. We are not going to allow the Jewish people to suffer on our watch." This is important. There are 11 million members of CUFI. I found only one more Christian group in the United States that publicly condemned anti-Semitism. In December 2014, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops partnered with the American Jewish Committee, another joint initiative. They published a joint statement condemning anti-Semitism and labeling anti-Zionist rhetoric as anti-Semitic. That makes two major groups in the United States, the Catholics and Pastor Hagee's group, CUFI. Why has there been an absence of respected religious non-Jewish voices condemning something so obviously wrong? My answer is that they think that hating Jews and attacking Jews is not wrong. They think that condemning the hatred of Jews and attacks against Jews will not go well with their flock. Religious leaders have power. They have dedicated followers. Their words wield great weight. It's not simply that the fight against anti-Semitism and Jew hatred isn't high on their agenda. It's that it's not anywhere to be found on their agenda. Religious leadership has the power and the influence, and they have been silent. Coming up next, points of view. First up is a column from Ynet published on August 6, 2025, that was written by Hadar Galon. It's entitled, "When Being Jewish Becomes a Security Risk. The New Cultural Anti-Semitism." Subtitled opinion, "As artists are deplatformed and festivals drop Jewish performers citing security concerns, Western culture is embracing a dangerous double standard, boycotting Jews while embracing regimes that silence, jail, and execute their own artists." This is how Hadar Galon begins. This war began on October 7th, 2023, with the massacre of 378 young people at the Nova Music Festival, artists and dreamers slaughtered for the crime of being Jewish and dancing under the desert sky. Now the cultural world has decided the victims were the problem. The irony cuts like a rusty knife through silk. Right now, at the Edinburgh International Festival, the same festival founded in 1947 by Sir Rudolf Bing, an Austrian Jewish refugee from Nazi Germany, Jewish comedians are being canceled for the revolutionary act of existing. Bing's first invited artists were German. He envisioned healing the wounds of war through art, a gesture of reconciliation. He couldn't have imagined a more perverted scenario than canceling Jews at his festival. Now Galon explains what is happening in Edinburgh and elsewhere, that Jewish talent is being uninvited, deplatformed, not for content, but because they are Jewish. She continues, Philip Simon and Rachel Krieger, British Jewish artists, had their Edinburgh Fringe shows axed, not for political content, mind you, but because venues deemed their mere Jewish presence incompatible with our stance against the current Israeli government. Because nothing says principled political stance like punishing people for existing, right? Galon was tongue-in-cheek there, but she's right. She explains now that it has also happened in Belgium and in Canada. These are supposed to be open, non-political regions of the world. Galon writes, Israeli DJ Skazi was yanked from Belgium's Tomorrowland hours before performing due to security concerns. Apparently, his Israeli passport posed a grave threat to electronic music. That's tongue-in-cheek again. The Vancouver Comics Arts Festival banned Jewish American cartoonist Miriam Libisky over her past IDF service, issuing an accountability statement declaring her presence created, quote, a public safety concerns for those directly affected by the ongoing genocide in Palestine. Canada axed the Hamilton Jewish Film Festival after complaints that Israeli-produced films constitute Zionist propaganda, because clearly Jewish filmmakers discussing their grandmother's challah recipe are secret agents of imperialism. And in Edinburgh, Leith's neighborhood now proudly is declared a Zionist-free zone. Local organizers threatened to, quote, take the flight from the streets into our workplaces, unquote. How wonderfully efficient. They've turned a Scottish neighborhood into a Jew-free district. The Nuremberg laws would be so proud of this progressive rebranding. Galon now compares Jewish artists to Russian artists and concludes that the Jews have faced and are facing far harsher measures than the Russians did after invading Ukraine, she writes. Russian artists faced limited sanctions after Ukraine's invasion, nothing approaching the systematic boycotts targeting Jews. Hadar Golan concludes by showing just how unfair it all is. She writes, the selectivity is so brazen, it's almost artistic. Artists from actual dictatorships get red carpet treatments, while Jewish comedians performing mother-in-law jokes get security warnings. But here's what breaks my heart as an artist. Our mission, like it or not, is to bridge and heal, to seek new perspectives and go beyond this world to a zone of freedom and love. We exist to express what is suppressed. When art is weaponized, when culture becomes a tool of exclusion and hatred, what is left? Thank you, Hadar Galon. Most people do not pay much attention to these issues. Thank you so much for bringing it to our attention. Next up is also a column from Winact. It is entitled, You Are Not Moral Voices, You Are Moral Criminals. Subtitled opinion, criticism of Israel's government is legitimate, but echoing Hamas propaganda is not. Those who now accuse Israel of atrocities in Gaza stayed silent when the October 7th massacre was celebrated and have chosen the wrong side. It was published on August 5th, 2025, and it's authored by Ben Dror Yemini, one of our favorite columnists. He always gets at the heart of the matter. This is how he begins, and what he writes is very disturbing and so correct. He begins, it was inevitable that they would appear, the formers, and the right behind them, the bohemians. They have microphones at the ready, are sought-after interviewees, and their venomous remarks always find an eager audience in Israel and abroad. It began with former Chief of Staff Moshe Bogi Ya'alon and former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, continued in recent days with Amiram Levin and David Grossman. It didn't take long for the artists to join the chorus accusing Israel of committing atrocities. From time to time, they roll their eyes heavenward and ask, where were you when the children were killed in Gaza? The death of children in Gaza is indeed tragic, but with all due respect to the questioners, there are far more urgent questions. Where were you when Hamas spokesman repeatedly declared their aim was to kill the Jews, every last one? Where were you when your counterparts around the world, bohemians, activists, politicians, celebrated, justified, and glorified the mass slaughter and mass rape of October 7th? Did you speak out? Did you post? Ben Dror now asks, where were you? He asks, why are you only criticizing Israel? Israel needed your moral preaching against Hamas and the world who was condemning her. He writes, where were you when progressive groups worldwide launched their anti-Semitic campaign? Not just anti-Israel, not just anti-Zionist, but openly anti-Semitic. Even before the bodies of the murdered babies in the Gaza border communities had been collected. Where were you when thousands of Hamas supporters in Gaza danced in the street, wept with joy, desecrated corpses, and paraded back into the strip in triumph? Where were you when, as singer and reservist Idan Amedi wrote, every house in Gaza contains anti-Semitic propaganda, and when soldiers reported that nearly every building held either Hamas weapons or a tunnel shaft? And where were you when, according to every available poll before and after October 7th, most of the Gaza's population was on Hamas's side? No, you are not men of conscience. You are moral criminals. That's how Ben-Dror Yemini deals with this. He now compares Israel to the US and the UK in their fight against terror. It's shocking to see the differences. This is what he writes. During the US and UK-led war on terror, 70% of the dead were civilians. No formers or bohemians spread blood libels about war crimes then. But they are brave only when it comes to attacking Israel. Anyone who aids, even unwittingly, an Islamist Nazi movement whose declared goal is to annihilate Jews, Christians, and Muslims who defy them, sexual minorities, and ultimately to dominate the world is a moral criminal. That person has chosen a side, not the side of defending human values, but the side of absolute evil. He concludes writing that yes, innocent people die in war, but, capital but, there is a huge but. He writes, yes, innocent people are dying. That is tragic. And when there is suspicion of a war crime, as in any war, it must be investigated. But contrary to the slander from Amiran Levin, once a respected officer, there is no government giving the army orders that are crimes in Israel. When he claims there is genocide, he brands every IDF soldier with the mark of shame. If that isn't Hamas propaganda, what is? Levin now joins Olmert and Yalon, each with their own poisonous words. It's worth recalling Judge Richard Goldstone accused Israel of war crimes when Olmert was prime minister. Back in October 2009, protesters screamed at Olmert, war criminal, fascist, murderer. Goldstone later retracted. Olmert has not. Olmert, Yalon, Levin, and Grossman all know Israel is the most defamed nation on earth, thanks to atrocity propaganda, and yet they have become its most effective amplifiers. Courage is speaking out against Hamas and Islamic Jihad and warning that they threaten the entire free world. Not Olmert, not Bogie, not Levin, not Grossman, not the Bohemians. They know exactly the mindset of the progressive echo chamber in which they live. There is plenty of room for harsh and scathing criticism of Israel's current government, but a bad government does not justify strengthening Hamas and their web of lies. That is not how moral people behave. That is how hypocrites, cynics, and moral criminals behave. Thank you, Ben-Dror Yemini, for putting this into perspective. As always, your analysis is spot on and so true. Coming up, commentary through cartoons, where pictures tell the story. I'm going to show you 8 cartoons today. They all deal with the Gaza famine. There have been hundreds of political cartoons condemning Israel for creating a famine in Gaza. We need to remember that this is a modern-day blood libel. This first cartoon, Bibi sits in front of a camera, standing in front of a camera, which represents the media and the world press. Behind him is the famine, which he's hiding with his body. Next up is a depiction of the Arch of Triumph. And written on it on top is the expression, absolute victory. The arch is Gaza, and it's composed of skin and bones body and an empty spoon. It is grotesque. This next cartoon is entitled, Israel a Pariah. Bibi is digging a tunnel in Gaza with missiles. The close-up shows just how crazed he is. This cartoon is of the IDF war room. Generals are on the map, which is a dead, starving baby. The IDF generals are plotting their next move in Gaza. I think that this cartoon pushes the envelope way too far. Next up is a cartoon that depicts Gaza a Gazan hoping for aid. His hope is that the spigot of aid will come out, and out will come food and other important things. Next up is a cartoon entitled The Gaza War. It's a pistol shaped out of two Gazans, just made of skin and bones. This cartoon depicts Gazans getting food at a food center, and Bibi is there shooting them. And now finally, Trump is depicted as a facade for the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that distributes food in Gaza. Bibi is behind the facade of Donald Trump with a sniper rifle, and the facade reads GHF, Get Hunted for Food. It's truly gross, simply gross. In a moment, more of my own perspective and a few predictions. IDF spokesperson announced that from a preliminary and thorough examination, it appears that there are no known casualties as a result of IDF fire in central aid distribution areas in Gaza on August 6th. This comes after the Palestinian Football Association claimed that former player Suleiman Al-Abeid, nicknamed the Palestinian Pele, was killed by IDF fire while waiting for humanitarian aid. Al-Abeid was 41 years old at the time, left behind a wife and 5 children. He may have died, but not by the hand of the IDF. This is just another example of death as propaganda, using popular people or horrific untrue images to paint Israel as evil. Hamas is still launching rockets from Gaza into Israel. The IDF spokesperson announced that the Air Force destroyed the launch site from which Hamas fired 2 rockets towards Israel. The fighter jets struck the complex in Sharjah, a neighborhood in northern Gaza, directed by the Nahal Brigade's fire unit on the ground. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz addressed Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's statement that Germany's decision to impose an arms embargo on Israel is a reward for the worst attack since the Holocaust. In an interview with the German news program Tagesthemen, saying that we stand with Israel. According to him, we clearly identify who is responsible for this war: Hamas. Merz noted that Germany maintains an open dialogue with Israel and that there are opportunities for cooperation at the level of foreign and defense ministers between the countries. The IDF addressed the cabinet's decision regarding expanding the fighting in Gaza Strip and capturing Gaza City. They said, this is an official statement of the IDF, we are giving Southern Command time to plan the operation together with the division commanders. They added that the Chief of Staff will approve the main ideas at the end of the week. We will definitely mobilize reserves. And the question won't be if, but how many. The outlook is not just on Gaza, considering the olive harvest season in Judea and Samaria in autumn. We'll take that into account, the holiday period. We will present alternatives according to different methods that will be chosen and developed later. Israel's High Court of Justice ordered the state to respond to a petition by the hostage family's headquarters in which they demanded clarification on, and this is the quote, how and before whom it is required to justify the manner in which discretion is exercised regarding setting conditions for ending the war and releasing hostages held captive by terrorist organizations in the Gaza Strip. The state must respond by August 24th. The essence of the question is how it will be determined which of the living hostages will be released and which of the dead. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was asked at the press conference for foreign media why Israel does not allow journalists to enter Gaza. And he replied, I instructed the military to bring in foreign journalists. There is a problem ensuring their safety, but I think it is possible to do so safely now. The directive from 2 days ago to bring journalists in, because I think you need to see this, our efforts to bring food to Gaza. You'll see the trucks that entered and are waiting for distribution. The Gazans who are fighting Hamas, you'll see the physical destruction. The government approved the extension of reserve duty, Miluim, until November 30th. The maximum number of recruits in the reserve order has been reduced from 450,000 set last order to 430,000 who will be called up for this Miluim, for this reserve duty. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquante piece of information. We've been speaking about the numerous cultural boycotts against Israel in Scotland, Belgium, and Canada. However, we should remember that in May, Israel took second place in Eurovision when Yuval Raphael sung "A New Day Will Rise." She herself is a survivor of the October 7th massacre at the Nova Festival. Eurovision took place in Basel, Switzerland, and there were anti-Israel protests outside and inside. And twice the police stopped protesters from rushing the stage when Yuval Raphael was singing and performing. But nonetheless, Israel performed and took second place. Let's enjoy her performance.
And even if you say goodbye, you'll never go away. You are the rainbow in my sky, my colors in the gray, my only wish upon a star, sunshine in the day, the only song that my piano ever plays. And even if you say goodbye, you'll always be around to lift me up and take me high, keep my feet close to the ground. Are you proud of me tonight? Dreams are coming true. I choose the light, nothing to lose. If I lose you, new day will rise, life will go on. Everyone cries, don't cry alone. Darkness will fade, all the pain will go by, but we will stay, even if you say goodbye. Si tu dis adieu, tu ne partiras jamais. T'es l'arc-en-ciel dans mon ciel bleu, mes couleurs dans le cri, aimant se souhaite sous un ciel d'art, un rayon de ma journée. La seule chanson que mon piano peut jouer. New day will rise, life will go on. Everyone cries, don't cry alone. Darkness will fade, all the pain will go by, but we will stay, even if you say new day will rise, life will go on. Everyone cries, don't cry alone. Darkness will fade, all the pain will go by, but you will stay, the love of my life. מים רבים לא יכבו את האהבה, ונהרות לא ישטפו. New day will rise, everyone cries, don't cry alone. Darkness will fade, all the pain will go by, but we will stay, even if you say goodbye. A new day will rise, new day will rise. Thank you, Europe! Am Israel Chai!
Wow, what a performance. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.